Right now, we're at a tipping point, whether it's energy security or AI innovation. We're looking at two of the biggest forces shaping the future of the nations, the future of the world. Are we going to be able to lead that, or are we going to have to follow? Just watching what's happened in terms of OpenAI's adoption of China, the attempts of Elon Musk to try and buy OpenAI for $100 billion. It's in the news, it's forefront and center on the global stage. How North America, Europe and China behave in the next few months is critical to all our futures. We've seen what happens when we rely on foreign energy, and we've seen what happens when we let others dictate the pace of technological development, including AI. If the UK wants sovereignty, both economic, industrial and technological, we need to take control of both power and AI. And that's where Carl comes in. He's not just talking, he's doing. He's a pioneer in AI-driven energy, building systems that make the UK stronger, more resilient and more independent. In this conversation, we break down exactly how the UK needs to own its future with AI, renewables and real-world solutions that just go beyond the headlines of the climate crisis. If you care about the UK's place in the world, you need to watch this. AI and energy, they're not separate. They're the foundation of our future, and the time to take control is now.
Baseline.
The whole grid and the whole system has a massive draw, and it can't keep up. So you've got to proactively think about how we can safeguard against that, which is investing in your own renewable energy.
I've seen things you won't believe.
More human than human.
Make you question everything.
And I was sat in a law firm, and there was a guy in the corner reading lots of case files, and I was thinking, he's doing well for himself, but that's not me. I can't sit in a room just reading. You know, a fair play to them, but I want to be out. I like to be out in the thick of it. So I ended up in a sales role after graduating, and that just fit with me so much more. Being out, independent, in and out different businesses, fast changing environments. So the law piece was almost kind of a tick in a box. Yeah, been there, done it. Could have gone down that route.
I mean, a lot of people, Carl, would by getting the first of all, amazing work and well done, but by getting the first in a law degree, that would blow their minds. You talk about it in such a casual way, as if, okay, it's done, it's almost ticking the box, it's not enough. Like that insatiable appetite for growth and knowledge and learning, and that, like I would say, like, not to be too provocative, but like you're putting quite a, like, not pressure on yourself, but you're setting quite high expectations of oneself. Where does that come from?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I think you've got to be passionate about something. So regardless of the achievement with a degree, if you're not enjoying it and you're not passionate about that thing, then you're not really going to do that well at it. You know, it will be a revenue stream of income. You'll go to work, you might do the graft. It'll be a lot more than 9 to 5 for sure. There's no enjoyment, there's no drive, there's no vision, there's no ambition, your heart's not in it. And that was what I realised once I did the placement. Again, it was more to prove a point that I could do that thing. And then when I realised going into a sales role, they give me a car. The starting off wage was more. They give me an expense account. I was like, this is brilliant compared to another 3 years in a law degree, well, in a law firm, should I say. To truly learn about business, it starts with sales. Pretty much everything you have in your life has been sold to you somewhere along the line. Every business had an element of sales in it. And that didn't even come across when you're learning business at university. And if I could go back and tell people, I'd say, really consider sales. I mean, if you look at America, it's a profession. It's completely different. You can do degree courses in that. The education is specifically in sales. It's not a profession in this country. Accountancy is regulated, chartered institute, marketing, etc., etc. But sales isn't something that's really seen or pushed. People think straight away, car sales. You know, when you go, I'm a salesman, I think, oh, okay. you're going to sell something or that kind of stereotype into that industry. But it's so much more than that. It's learning about engaging with customers, face-to-face values, picking up on opportunities, and converting that all the way through the business process. So it was an eye-opener, definitely, from sales. And then that natural progression then went to obviously setting up my own businesses and going from there.
What about sales do you like?
I think there's a wide range. Meeting new people is definitely one. Travel, you get to travel a lot. It's the autonomy as well. So being able to go, right, I'm going to go see this person in this location, figure out about their business, what they're doing, how you can add value. It's that problem-solving piece of everything to do with sales. I think the other thing, salespeople, I think you've either got it or you haven't got it. Anybody really can do sales, whether you enjoy it or you can't enjoy it, or you don't enjoy it, should I say. But you've got to have that intuition. You've got to be able to read people, and you've got to be able to listen. The most important thing is listening. So listening to the person, to the side, interpreting the information, and then figuring out where the value is that you can bring to them. And ultimately, it's how you can help their business and in their role, their position.
A lot of, if you look at like the way tech has evolved, certainly since COVID, like the dynamics of the sales process has changed. Less in person, more remote. How do you traverse that? I mean, how do you traverse that challenge of not having that physical in presence and therefore that physical intuition that you may have, face to face in like a sales process or an engagement?
So I think the way it's going to change, and it's already changing. So you've got the integration of AI, certain programs in the sales process. So we're automating how we prospect. So if we think of applications like LinkedIn that will canvas and tell you different personality profiles, tell you how to sell to that individual. So the prospecting piece is great. So we can go, right, we know this profile of person and we can say this messaging. The challenge is then after that. So we've got into the person. We know what we want to say to them. We've got a response. Now there's got to be a human engagement piece. So the AI can do some of the legwork and the running around and assessing who's going to be warm or susceptible to certain products and services. Then the human element comes in of where's the value? How do you engage? How do you have charisma, rapport, all these kind of things? My concern moving forward in business is that is going to get lost with people because we can refine all these pre-sales people to AI and integration, which is great. But that human interaction element is going to go not only from the development of these AI programs, but also the younger generations that have already engaged with so much background in social media that have already lost that ability for their social engagement. So I think that the values that certain generations have with going out, meeting, doing are going to come back around because we're going to need more of that as AI develops, not actually less. Because the younger generations now, they struggle with that. They've got a lot more anxiety with meeting people. They've got more, they're more fearful of social interactions because they're reliant on this fake reality of social media. And I think that will play massively into how we move forward in business and sales. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, totally. Look, I mean, there's so many ideas and thoughts I have, and you're clearly extremely successful in this. So, like, I'm learning all the time. What I have learned is, and I've worked for some big. Back in last year, I was working with some of the big BPO providers to government, and Carl, they're so over-tooled with Salesforce and LinkedIn and Sales Navigator and there was products that could map the management structure within a business. I think it was yesterday, Elon Musk, King Elon, straight saying about LinkedIn, how it's cringe to be on LinkedIn, which I thought was quite funny. I mean, he's obviously in a very lucky position that he can say that. We're all grinding away trying to find. Yeah. But I do think, to your point, Are we going to return to phoning people, talking to people, meeting people, enjoying a little bit of social interactivity? It's got to be a good thing.
I think it has to come to that at some point.
We do need a CRM, don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
But I just thought over-tooling, it's easy to over-tool.
Well, I was thinking the other day, so there was a post on social media about some young lad, graduate, and he applied for 10,000 jobs using AI.
Yeah.
And so he can just automate and say, right, these are the companies I want to go for, alter my CV, this is the role, etc., etc. It's the same with sending an email. You don't need to be good at writing anymore. You don't need to be good at vocabulary, your grammar. AI does it for you. You can write a great email, I can write a great covering letter, I can put together a great CV, all with tools at your fingertips. So what happens in business when you're trying to hire somebody and you get 1,000 CVs and you would skim through them and you would cut out half quite quickly with normally grades, education, experience. Then it would be how they come across in the tone of language. So what was their cover letter like? How well do they communicate? Do they really want the role? If AI is doing that for you, you can no longer determine out of them 1,000 that you say narrowed down to 200, who are the exceptional ones who can type a good covering letter. So it comes back around to you going, right, well, actually, what we need to do is get in front of these people.
I totally agree.
And we now need to meet them, which goes back to what I'm saying about the skill set from being able to socially interact and have rapport and charisma and getting that energy off people rather than just looking at what used to be a great covering letter.
We're beyond text. I think we're beyond text. Like I saw somebody putting something on LinkedIn last night again, and it was all about how hundreds of people are applying for the jobs. They're saying the same language. Everybody's using ChatGPT 4.0. Nobody's doing a particularly sophisticated prompt. I mean, you can prompt these things to be much more sophisticated. So you're getting into prompt engineering to see how much editing you can do of the output. But I thought, well, if we've built an AI that can predict and create language and generate language and text, then why are we not that initial qualification process before you might meet people? Why are we not using multimedia? Why aren't we doing videos? Why are we not creating a body of work on YouTube or somewhere else to basically say, there's the link. You will find out all about me by watching this content, consume that content, and you will know whether you want to meet me or not, because the written word is commoditized.
Yeah. Do
you know?
It's a skill that's kind of been lost. Well, it's not lost. It's just not required anymore.
Do you think you're a natural salesperson?
I think it's just been in me from day one.
What about renewable energy and like green energy and sustainability is particularly interesting to you?
So there's a number of aspects to that. So we started out as critical power, so reliance on any infrastructure that's critical. We supply devices that would come in the event of a power outage, support the critical equipment to keep businesses running.
UPS, diesel engines, is sort of the good stuff.
Servers, CCTV, hospitals, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where we started and got into how power comes into a building and how it's quite important. And then we realised, well, we're protecting the power. Now, what about the green energy and how to create more? So there's the energy security piece, then the resiliency of that building, and how do we incorporate that? And also, how do we grow in different markets as a business? You know, we're already operating in one. We know there's a growth market in renewables, which is exciting because there's so much tech that's coming out, not just software, but hardware as well. And the hardware that's coming out from these new innovations like vertical axis wind turbines and products like this that can add into existing solar energy storage systems doesn't quite have that intelligence there yet. So when it comes to software, AI integration of these systems, there's a huge opportunity for it, because once we can get a number of products to integrate together to be smart, using AI tools, then that's where we'll really become energy efficient and optimize our infrastructure and what we've got. And the main reason for that is less reliance on the grid, energy security, and carbon reduction. We already know that this is a big concern. Everybody's energy prices went up a few years ago, and everybody kind of lost their mind and was like, oh no. So funnily enough, before that happened, there was a huge influx in manufacturing solar panels, which happens to be around the similar time of when this happened. So there was a huge rise in that market because people knew they couldn't rely on the grid for stability, price security, which is why people are now increasing their own footprint in the renewable energy market. So typically at home, you go, right, we're going to put solar on, energy storage. We might have a small wind turbine because we want to control our own reliance. We don't want to worry just about the national grid power in it because it's not reliable and we don't trust it. And it's only going to get worse. If the government incentivise, which they already do heavily, electric vehicles, everyone gets home 5, 6 o'clock, plugs it in and puts the kettle on. The whole grid and the whole system has a massive draw and it can't keep up. So we've got to proactively think about how we can safeguard against that, which is investing in your own renewable energy and also ensuring that you've got stability of supply moving forward.
I'm already sensing this theme in the couple of things you've talked about of this self-reliance, of this ability to be independent and confident in your own ability to provide for yourself.
Yeah.
Is that like a theme? Is that one of the reasons why you're doing this in energy, to kind of give businesses that ability to empower themselves?
I would say it's definitely one of the reasons, yeah.
I heard a story that that influx you were talking about of solar panels, they could make them so cheaply that in places in Eastern Europe, they're using solar panels as fencing because it's cheaper than putting a fence in. Wow. So they're just ropes. So they're not connected. They just use them as fencing.
Crazy.
I thought that was amazing.
Yeah.
That's how cheap they've managed to create solar.
I think another interesting, an exciting area of the market is that solar panels have been around 20, 30 years. The market's steadily growing. Energy storage is set to double over the next 10 years. So that market size is really going to increase. And also onshore wind. So even though the renewable industry in the UK is worth 26 billion a year just in the UK, the growth rates are just incredible. And it's all about how you can utilize all of the elements. So not just solar. That's where we kind of differentiate. We're looking at 365. How do we do it? So wind throughout the winter. We've got energy storage to store usage energy that you might, if you create and you overuse, and you can feed it back. And all these systems. So we talk about AI and tech. So I'll give you an example on the wind turbine stuff. We're working on some at the moment where it will integrate with weather data, for example. So if there's a storm coming and we've got 1,000 units across the UK, it will intelligently alter the settings of the inverters and optimize the wind usage in different areas based on the storms and weather data to create more energy. So there's some really exciting and clever things in the industry. But all of that needs to be implemented, like you said before, for energy security.
The way your example there is back to this AI augmentation narrative. So we've got the solar panels, we've got the wind farms, we've got geothermal, whatever renewable source of energy we can get. AI is this layer where we can optimize and increase productivity of those assets. Is that right?
Absolutely. Everything's about optimization.
What about this whole, I'm looking at what's going on in the US, drill baby drill, a move back to what is almost 1960s, 70s, a reaction to this progressive renewable motion, which worries me for a whole set of reasons. But I'd be interested in your perspective, like whether what you're proposing, is it actually feasible? And then obviously nuclear is an interesting component. So do you genuinely believe renewables are a feasible source of energy for a growing economy?
Absolutely. It's got to be a mixture of everything. So we're going to need reliance on nuclear, but we've got to be in a position where we invest in renewables that work, that can be scalable, because we're always going to grow. Our infrastructure is always going to grow. And when we optimize that with these clever AI tools and everything else in tech, that provides us with energy security, resiliency. But the other aspect, which is quite important, is national security. So the risk is that we, let's say we all invest and we all buy energy storage systems and we all put solar panels on our roof, and it's great. If there is some larger players that can optimize this for us, and we sign up with an app and it's great, and they take a monopoly of that market, the risk is that can be interfered with externally. So we have to be very careful with our national security with power. When you're saying about, the American markets and how they're looking at drilling and things like that, that's because they're looking at their own turf and how they can generate from the resources they've got, rather than importing from other countries that are bigger players in the manufacture of these materials. The reality is the UK doesn't manufacture a lot at all. Everything's coming from certain countries where most things are manufactured. With that becomes a risk of cybersecurity for our own national security.
Well, let's just go back to power generation. What do you think is a 3 to 5 year strategy to set the UK on a path to energy surplus? How do we get to a point where we have sovereign energy creation that can fulfill our critical infrastructure?
They're kind of already doing it, but it's going to take a lot longer than that 3 to 5 year kind of window. So they've got to ramp it up. Offshore wind is huge. That's the biggest kind of provider of renewable energy for the UK, especially in Scotland. Solar farms are the next thing. So we can get huge amounts of energy from the sun in the summer months. But the reality is we're a windy island, and we don't have that much sunlight. So wind is the natural choice. Wind and tidal. Tidal is always guaranteed. So there needs to be more investment in tidal energy. So we're already working with some companies that have got some really nice technology in that space. Onshore wind is the next thing. We see that onshore wind, small, domestic, products that are accessible to the market, because then we can tap into that wind resource for everybody in any position. So if we can get onshore wind, offshore we've already got tidal, and then it comes down to storing it. So then we've got large energy storage systems that can regulate and optimize the use of the national grid and the decentralized power in all these different places. If we can then do that with energy management and optimization, then we are quickly approaching being kind of energy independent.
Okay, so here's the challenge. When I have looked at, like, for my own personal augmentation, wind power, Carl, you're looking at a 20-year business case on the asset.
Your mindset was return on investment of that asset. So that mindset needs to go. If you're looking at it from a financial point of view, then every product in the renewable will have an ROI. Solar at the moment typically get an ROI 6 to 7 years. With there's some new systems of VPP, which you can touch on, virtual power plants that integrate and optimize, can get that down to 3 to 4 years.
Is that an AI?
That's an AI program that will optimize certain companies in the UK that will optimize the performance of your existing assets to get the most out of that system. So it will store and it will buy and sell at certain times of the day, depending on your rates, usage, and it's learning. So that's an example of something that
sounds amazing.
It is. It's great.
So if what you're telling me is we get a wind turbine asset, just for price and production, it's a 30-year business case payoff, but we can layer some sort of machine learning, predictive analytics, buy, sell. It's doing economic balancing of the power, and that turns into 8 years.
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking, I like the sound of AI augmented wind farms.
Yeah, I bet you do. So from a solar point of view, typically 7 years to 3 to 4. So I'm sure it'll be similar kind of reduction in other technologies.
And AI is only going to get better.
It's only going to get better. And once they integrate together, it's going to get better again. So this is where the opportunity is great. But back to where you said about the use case of how is the government going to back something that's 30 years ROI? We have to remove the ROI piece. We have to look at this as an investment of, firstly, reduction of carbon and the creation of energy. So we take away the monetary incentive. It's not about what are we getting back in our pound, in our back pocket. That's a difficult challenge because most people who implement it in their private or even a commercial setting will want to see what the return on investment is, especially if you're speaking to a CFO or a financial director. What's it going to cost and what's my payback? So we've got to overcome this mindset that this is all about the financial implication of that renewable asset. It's got to be what's the carbon reduction and what's the long-term strategy of energy security and resiliency for the business operations and for the greater good of the planet. That's why a lot of people get into this space. So if we can get to that point where we've invested, we've got all this renewable technology, which is happening, by the way, people are putting a lot of money into this industry. The biggest challenge or concern that I see, mainly from central government, is we have these targets, these net zero targets. But what are the implications? Let's say I run a manufacturing site and I generate a huge amount of power every year and I don't hit them targets, 2030, 2035, 2050, whatever they are. What's the implication to me? I don't know. Nobody can tell me. There's nothing to say, if you don't hit this target, we are going to hit you with this tariff. You are going to be taxed with this. Not to my knowledge, anyway. So if it's not to my knowledge, why is that information not shared and out there? So there's no measurable information that's put out to really get people to put their hand in their pocket and go, actually, we really need to jump on this and invest. So there's so many organisations out there that haven't even started the journey because it's, well, I'll wait until I get a letter from the government to say, you need to do this or else. At the moment, there isn't any or else. It's just a target without any penalty. So that's something that needs to be addressed.
I mean, the economic imbalance globally, certainly around manufacturing, is huge as we stand here. The reality is, I don't manufacture things physically, but if I was going to do it, I wouldn't be. You look at options on manufacturing economics, people end up obviously going to Asia, various other options in terms of cost of manufacturing. If the UK energy production goes renewable and it increases the price of power to create manufacturing, you're just making manufacturing even more inaccessible or commercially viable, and therefore prices have got to go up. People are going to say the prices are going up anyways. Do you see?
Yeah.
Like how can you compete when China are leaning into coal power, US is going to lean into coal power? You may not like it, but are we going to end up being this green island with all smog above us coming from everywhere else in the planet, completely incapable of being economically competitive because we're insisting on trying to manufacture things from wind turbines?
So one of the things that,
and that might be provocative. It is for a reason. Because this is the reality of what's going on.
Yeah. So we're a services-driven country. We know that there's not a lot of manufacturing in the UK, and the ones that are most recent industries have left and been taken over and bought out, and it's all very upsetting, especially in the northeast. I
mean, Nissan.
Yeah.
When I came out of university, before I went to university, I loved design and art, and the one place for me as a Cumbrian designer or product design was everybody was Nissan. You go to Nissan, you build dashboards, draw things, build cars. They were phenomenal. I mean, Japanese manufacturing, I think they've just closed Nissan.
So in the northeast, it's still very, very much alive, but it's not what it used to be. And a lot of that is, so there's a real issue with manufacturing in the northeast to do with the resource. So that they've lost that ability to have the people that would go on the line and do a shift, a hard day's graft. And a lot of it has actually come from distribution centres that will take flexible working.
Wow, Amazon.
The large Amazon warehouses that have taken that skilled labour that would go into manufacturing facilities. And now they've given them flexible working hours. a higher paid hourly rate with no skill set required, order picking. So these huge Amazon distribution centers have taken a huge amount of resource away from them. So what's happened is there's a pool of manufacturing companies that seem to just be poaching the same people that are good, that have got these skill sets and paying them more. So that the costs are going up, the skill set isn't getting any stronger, and the younger generations aren't growing up thinking, I want to go and be on the line. There's an opportunity for the younger generations to acknowledge there's a gap in the market there. So there was a huge push, people to go to university. So I didn't go to university at 18. I worked for a few years and then realised I need to go to university to be considered for other roles. Most people just go into the mindset, 18, university, get loads of debt. And then what? Don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a degree in something that I don't even know if I want to go into that career or like it. And then they don't really know what they're going to do after that. There's a huge opportunity for people to leave and go into this skilled workforce of training, apprenticeships, to fill that void that can earn a really good living. I know people that are in the trades now earning a lot more than people that are educated.
And find some identity, find some self-esteem. I think it was 13th of January, Keir Starmer did a speech and he talked about AI as the opportunity of our generation. And there was one line in it that I've actually used for my previous podcast, so I won't be using this one. And it was whether we had to choose whether the UK was going to be an AI maker or an AI taker. And when I meet you, and the thread of this conversation has been about independence, self-sustainability. Carl, how do we get your mindset into everybody else? I find it quite motivational, inspiring.
A lot of people need to think what's their purpose. So if you go to work, what are you doing it for? Most people will say to earn some money and keep afloat, do whatever. The reality is, my mindset is, it should be about time is the ultimate value in life. If you can create more time with whatever you've got and doing things you want to do, then that is a piece of security yourself. And then there's also keeping your own little bubble secure, like we said. So if you're at home, and you can keep the lights on, if the power goes out and you've got a baby and you've got to do them a bottle or something like that, then that's an issue for you. So it's about, I think it comes from being protective of your own little environment, which comes into your work ethic, what your qualities are, what your values are, and then that flowing out into being independent in a way on a smaller level, and then also part of independence as the UK on the world stage. They made it clear that they already wanted to do that with the vote exiting EU years ago. So it's also finding that niche of what the values are. I think it's a mixture of things, to be honest.
Well, in the bigger AI tech world, there's a push for sovereignty as well. And I was in a conversation this morning over at Canary Wharf, and we were talking about the large language models that have been applied in generative AI. Obviously, the OpenAI ChatGPT out of North America, the DeepSeek technology out of China. And there was a discussion today around financial services to say, there's a narrative creeping in around sovereignty to the large language model. Mm-hmm. So the LLM that we're going to use to generate all this text and all these images, we want to make sure it's transparent within our regulatory domain, i.e., is it in the EU? Is it in North America? There's a push for that geographical localization, which these LLMs take a huge amount of power to run. They need data centers that are physically secure and transparent, logged. I believe the UK should be pushing into sovereign data centers to run these things, sovereign technology. They're going to need power to run them.
Yeah, which feeds into that whole piece.
And there's no point building a sovereign system that relies on, power coming from somewhere else.
In terms of AI, just to go back on what you mentioned there about LLMs and all this integration of generative AI, and they need a lot of power and data centers and all this. One of the things that I've seen from from a business owner, which has been incredible, is this adoption and normalization of AI. So it never really used to be, people were kind of put off with it a little bit. and they were like, we're not sure. But now the bigger players have kind of marketed it really well. It's just normalized. So if I want to access a large amount of data, and I can just put it in ChatGPT or whatever, if I want to get market information and insights, I can get it so fast. I've still got to analyze that information, so there's still a human point to it. You probably know about the study with AI, with the medical scanning of images,
Go for it.
where they have an AI analyzing all these images to look for certain diseases, and then they have a group of professional doctors that are using AI, and the ones that actually were better was AI on its own,
Oh, really?
rather than
So the doctors were inhibiting, they were questioning me.
It was because of the data input. So
Interesting.
because they were, they weren't fully equipped to learn to speak the AI language to get.
But that would suggest to optimize the output, you need to leave it to grow on its own.
So exactly.
Which people are very frightened of. Obviously, we're talking about guardrails.
I think AI is a great opportunity for us to create more time. So if we think of a mobile device, email, internet, we all thought it was great when it first came out. The reality is it probably made a lot of our lives worse. Because if you get an email now, you're expected to reply pretty quickly. There's a huge amount of pressure on being fast communication. You roll back when the days you had to dial up on a phone or write a letter to somebody and wait 3 days for a reply. The world was more relaxed. Stress wasn't as high. Cancer was lower. So these devices are great. We've got knowledge at our fingertips, but have created a complete layer of complexity on our own mental health. So now, I think with AI, we've got the ability to reverse that in a way. If we're smart enough with these systems and solutions, they can do a lot of the legwork for us.
They can buffer things digitally. What an interesting... I've never heard anybody talk like this. So the idea that this digital stuff is hitting us directly all the time just isn't good for us.
Yeah.
And to have AI buffering it, I mean, that's like having to this idea of a personal assistant, AI assistant that's representing you in digital transactions. I mean, do you use AI tools?
All the
Do you
time.
use ChatGPT?
All the time.
Yeah, everybody does.
But I never used to.
A lot of people don't want to talk about it, though. It's like a secret thing.
I think it's great. It's great. And certain LLMs that I've used to create podcasts from certain information.
Gemini.
Notebook. Is it
Notebook LMs,
Yeah,
Gemini,
yeah.
Google Gemini, yeah.
But again, you still can't replicate the importance of human interaction and that tone,
Yeah.
of being personable.
I think there's a novelty. There's a novelty in all of this technology. But for me, it's the memory. Carl, when you start building aggregated memory within the transaction, and I've only just discovered in ChatGPT the projects. So, I've always used chats with history, and I go back to previous chats. Yeah. I've actually started using projects now to structure conversations, so it always holds the memory. I mean, it's as I'm starting to get better with it and better with prompting. I think it's amazing technology. I certainly couldn't produce this without AI augmentation.
I did ask it to review all my previous data to give me certain answers. So it did scan through everything in the past to give me a more targeted outcome of the information I needed, which was great. But the main thing is time. It saves me a lot of time. And this is why I'm saying if we can realize that we can save time, then we might be able to strip back some of these responsibilities, do them more effectively and more efficiently, to take off some of this stress of this instant requirement of communication and the pressure that the world kind of puts on the fast-paced society. But I think the reality is capitalism will push for more outputs on people. So you'll be expected to do more. So your output will be, you need to do a lot more. Now you have these tools. So rather than it saving time and you're using that time to go and spend it with your family or go to the gym or doing something productive, it will be right. You can perform like two people now. So I think that's the risk. That's kind of the two sides of the coin.
It's like the increase in velocity of life. I totally find that. I mean, I do more work with it. I certainly don't work like a number of earlier podcast people were like, oh, it's going to be great. We can all do a 3-day working week and a 4-day week. It's not like that.
It's very difficult to manage change. So part of that is education, educating people of what they can do, what they can achieve, and then how they can actually do it. A lot of people don't know where to start. So it all started with, right, you're going to have to pay for your carrier bags in the supermarket. And believe it or not, that had a huge impact. And there's little things you could say to people, right, half the time you're in a shower, just little things like that, little changes. If you were looking at it from a climate crisis point of view, it will have a small impact. But if everybody did that, it would have a big impact. So it's changing behavior on a large scale, which is extremely difficult.
How do we create a progressive society that is leveraging technologies and elevating the people, yet being much more sensitive to the sustainability of the power that we produce? Is that possible?
It is possible, but I don't think it's easily achievable. The only way that would really happen, it also depends on the time scale that you're talking about. The only way for that to happen quickly is for the government to step in and create, a regulatory environment where you have to do things a certain way, because people predominantly won't change off their own instinct for the greater good. It's very much they're in their own bubble and they're going to do what they want to do when they want to do it. So there's the area of the market where people are interested in being green and want to reduce their carbon footprint, which is great. Then there's an area of the market that will look at this as return on investment, which is absolutely fine. We can show them the ROI of the technology available to them. Then there's the energy security piece, the people that want their independence and energy security. Great. We've got that solution there. Then the other one is regulatory. So ones that are going to have to adhere with tariffs, governance, fear of implications, legality of things. They're kind of the four main market drivers. So to get to that point, we've got to address all of them, targeted to the right area. And that's where AI integration of all these systems and knowing the markets, knowing what their values are, what solution fits, how we can integrate that with the values that they want out of this, will play a huge role in the whole optimization of the energy landscape.
Who will lead that?
There's already the big players that are doing a lot of it, ABB, Siemens, Hitachi, but they're doing it more on a larger energy storage scale. So the bigger energy requirements. There's a few that are coming in to offer domestic products, and that will have a huge impact on the industry. So once we get these VPPs, and just to explain, it's, let's say you have an energy storage system at home and a solar, and there's a little bit of energy in your battery, you can trade it. You can buy and sell and optimize, which gives you a better ROI and also gives you less reliance on the grid, and you're making more use of that green energy. So overall, it's great. So, and this is very much AI dominated software.
Do you package that in the stuff that you provide your customers?
At the moment, there's only a few companies that are really pushing it. That technology is nearly there. So there's one that we're working with at the moment that is going through the trial. So they've got the platform ready. It's normally a monthly subscription, but they're just proving that it does work, that it optimizes. So they're going through that test piece at the moment. Once that's to market, then that'll be a game changer, because it means that more and more people from the return of investment side will be willing to invest because their ROI reduces. So there's a great opportunity there. And that's a good example of where the software piece working with the hardware, it needs to work hand in hand. But the reality is the renewables industry smaller scale, the software it is not really gone hand in hand with the hardware yet.
The software's behind.
Way behind.
Interesting. Which presents a huge opportunity, surely.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So you're pioneering the packaging of cutting-edge software with proven, reliable hardware that could actually break the back of this economic inhibitor. If security is the priority, energy security, and you're reducing the time, the return on investment by 80%, it all starts to make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Is that, am I?
No, that's the plan. That's the plan. So part of that is integrating with the new innovative technologies, the ones that are coming into the market that haven't even thought about some kind of integration with software. So then we can say, right, this is a great hardware product. We just need to help you fine tune this in the UK market to push that on. So there's that piece. But no, absolutely, you're right. If we can get them to work hand in hand, then that's going to be great for the business, for the economy, for the renewables industry, optimizing your energy usage. So yeah, it would be.
What do you think are the top couple of things, exciting things that are coming into this space in the next few years? Like, what are you personally excited about that people may not be aware of?
Well, one of them being the vertical axis wind turbines from AirTurb. So one of them, two products that a small scale wind generation. So that their kind of ethos is bringing it to the UK market, so it's accessible for everybody. It just makes sense to me. Why have we not utilised small scale wind before for 365 power? The reality is it's very difficult to get the product right, and you get a low return of energy usage. So it's the longer game. But once you integrate that with solar and battery storage, that's when your output it is really valuable. The next one is tidal. So working with a company called Spiralis, who 3D print basically a turbine in the water. So again, tidal energy and hydro, very exciting technology. Once we integrate them with the software and the ecosystem of the industry, and that's really exciting. And then finally is the VPP. There's huge value in that. The growth of these AI integration to optimize all of these different renewable hardware solutions. I mean, that's just incredible.
So to simplify this, my home could become a multimodal generator of renewable energy, two modes being wind and solar. And those two span the 365 days more because we know there's less sun, but wind is predominant through the winter, so you're trying to balance out a little bit. And then there's some sort of AI layer that is working out, if I have a surplus, when's the optimum time to sell it to the grid to somehow generate not an income, but some form of economic return that allows me to see the return on investment of those multimodal renewable generation hardware, the ROI reduced significantly.
Correct. And if you've got, so say you are feeding back to the grid, someone else is using that somewhere else. So rather than losing it or storing it, you're reducing the reliance on.
As we're going through this year, what are you working on? Any interesting projects that could be reference cases for what you're doing in your business?
Yes.
And kind of how are you looking to scale your business through the year?
So some of the interesting projects, again, comes down to some of these wind turbines. So we're looking at a shopping centre at the moment that are looking at installing multiple small wind turbines on their roof. They've already got a solar system and a battery system, energy storage system. So this is to increase their output 365. So that will be an incredible case study piece, because then we'll take that to say, look, we've got the technology, we can develop this with other sites and other projects to really increase your output. So that's one kind of exciting case study that's very close to happening. We're just waiting on funding from the government. The biggest challenge at the moment is the grants and the incentives that are available from central government. The clarity is not quite there. With the recent change in leadership and politics, again, it's all up in the air. So that has halted a lot of projects and slowed them down. So one exciting thing is definitely the wind turbines. And then the next one I would say is the integration of energy management systems. So I know that we've talked about energy optimization, but we're working with some with some vendors at the moment that have technology that interface with every aspect of a building. So if it's heating, ventilation, every little module that goes on all these pieces goes to a centralized platform, and you can manage. And it's been around for years, but once you integrate that with renewables, it gets quite exciting.
As we've talked, you come across as a very focused, passionate advocate of renewable, and this idea of creating sovereign independence and security is pervasive through the way you're building your company and delivering things to customers, which is hugely respected. I mean, I have huge respect for what you're doing. And this personal usage of AI to improve productivity and protect yourself a little bit from the rate in the business, the challenges. These are growth challenges, which are good problems to have. And this idea that somehow AI can be integrated into our very grid, our energy system, to reduce the time to pay off and just improve productivity, is a very positive utopian vision. Do you believe AI will lead us to a utopia or a dystopia?
I think utopia. Yeah, because it's about us managing that growth, making it better for ourselves rather than worse. So I'm going to say utopia with that.